So, welcome to another video. I'd like to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of point-to-point or P2P internet service provider here in the Philippines. So, if you want to know more about the real advantages and the real disadvantages of the P2P or point-to-point internet service providers here in the Philippines, then stay tuned and watch this video. So first off, before anything else, this video is a response to the video of Sir QTV, who he talked about the advantages and the disadvantages of the point-to-point or P2P internet service provider here in the Philippines. So I'm not directly attacking his video. I think his video is compact and well explained, but I think there are just some concepts and some things that he forgot to talk about. So this video, I would like to give more information and I would like to give more ideas to his videos. So let's start with the video. So first off, what is P2P? P2P or point-to-point is one way to gain access or have access to the internet if your area or location has no other sources of internet, or let's say if you are living in a rural area, or you are staying in the farm area, or you are staying in the province of the Philippines where the internet connection is not that good, or the PLDT or the globe cannot really reach your location or the area you are living in. So currently here in the town I'm living in the Philippines, we don't have any access to fiber connection, so we only have DSL broadband, and that is the only available ISP or internet service provider. Usually the P2P is used for networking or file transfer, especially in big companies where they use wireless mode of transferring data from one computer to another. And that's it. That is the most simplest way I could explain what is P2P and how it is usually used. So other than being a networking, or other than transferring data or transferring files from one company to another, P2P could also be used to send signal or send frequencies that could be used for internet. So how do they install this point-to-point internet connection? Well, first of all, you must find a supplier for your P2P internet. Usually there's a monthly payment for it and an installation payment or an installation fee. The installation payment usually costs around 10,000 pesos or cheaper, and that would be for the material used in the antenna and the labor of the people who installed the antenna. Now, this installation payment is quite flexible and the price may vary, since the height of the antenna is also based on the signal it gathers. So if your antenna is quite short, it couldn't achieve the signal that is sufficient enough for your gadget or for the internet to load that specific website that you needed, or even load a specific video that you wanted to watch. So the P2P antenna must have that designated height, or it must achieve that height to achieve or to have it gather the signal that it really needs for you to have a good internet connection. So if the signal is quite low, the P2P provider might have to increase the height of the antenna for it to gather the sufficient signal for it to work properly. So in our case, the antenna installed was not tall enough to gather the signal it needed, so we need to increase the height of it by adding another pole or another or poste kung tawagin man dito sa in our local term. Now this costs us another 10,000 pesos just for the increase of the height of the antenna for it to achieve the signal that it needed. And the extra 10,000 was for the material used again and for the labor of the people who installed the extra height of the antenna. Also, with the installation fee, it also came with a modem. So it is already paid for. Now the modem is very simple and it's very basic. It's a entry level tenda. I'll post a picture here, somewhere here. Also, it's only working on a 2.4 gigahertz frequency. It's not a dual band. So I'm not this is for the guys who know what is a dual band or a dual width. So sometimes there is a 2.4 gigahertz and a 5 gigahertz frequency on your modem. Having both of them is a great advantage for your modem or for your router. But if you only have one, so if you only have the 2.4 gigahertz, that would sometimes be enough if you have a simple family or if you only have a small amount of gadgets that you are connecting to your modem or router. So if there would be plenty of you connected to the modem or to the router, it is better to purchase a faster and bigger capacity modem so that the bandwidth would be more flexible and more gadgets could connect without any traffic and loss to the connection. So the monthly payment would also depend on the speed of the P2P connection. I think they have 5 Mbps. That's the lowest you could get. They have 10 Mbps, 15 Mbps, 20 Mbps, 25 Mbps, so on and so forth. I'm not exactly sure what's the cap or what's the maximum speed that you could get. But when the internet speed increases, the price also increases. So in our case, we have 20 Mbps and our monthly payment is 2,500 pesos. So yes, the internet speed is very flexible. I'll talk about it later in one of the pros and cons. And that's it for the introduction. I'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages. Now let's talk about the pros and cons, since this is most likely be the main concern of this video. And this is also the response to Sir Q TV. I would like to add more disadvantages and advantages to the one you've given. I think I'll add more info and I'll add more things, especially in the disadvantages, since I think you forgot to talk about other circumstances and factors that would affect the speed or that would affect the point-to-point internet connection. So first disadvantage, to be honest with you, the internet is not stable. So yeah, it is not stable. Don't believe what the supplier will say. If they say it is stable at 20 Mbps, it is not stable at 20 Mbps. If they say it is stable at 10 Mbps, it is not stable at 10 Mbps, so on and so forth. It is never stable. Sometimes it will go down and go up and go down again. it will definitely hit the top speed. So if you have a 20 Mbps, it will definitely hit that 20 Mbps, but it will not be stable and it will still constantly fluctuate. So in our case, it does hit the 20 Mbps, but after how many minutes it will go down. It could reach up to 3 Mbps, and then it could go back up again. Sometimes it will go up slowly, like from 3 Mbps it would go to 5, it would go to 7, it would go to 10, and then it would sometimes hit the 20 Mbps mark again, and then it will go down again. So it is not stable. It constantly fluctuates. The second disadvantage is the expensive installation. So now the second disadvantage is the expense of the installation. It is very expensive. Our installation cost us 20,000 pesos. What was promised was 10,000 pesos. 10,000 pesos was must be operational, must be working, that 10,000 pesos. And we were in shock because the 10,000 pesos was definitely expensive. And when they said that they needed to add more height to the tower just for it to work perfectly, so we needed to add another 10,000 just to add the height of the tower. So it is not cheap, it is very expensive just for the installation of it. So if you compare it to the usual internet service providers like PLDT or Globe, they don't ask for installation fees, especially when you want to install DSL or fiber. They will not ask for installation fees, because the overall package or overall contract already included the installation fee. But in here it's not, so you need to pay another expenses. So just be prepared to pay for more than what they promised you for the installation fee. So in our case, they promised us 10,000 pesos. It wasn't 10,000 pesos. We needed to add another 10,000 pesos. So overall, it cost us 20,000 pesos. Now, if you watch the video of Sir QTV, he stated that I think he was overpriced. He paid overpriced for the installation. I think he was ripped off. He said in his video that he paid 50,000. What was promised was a 50,000 installation fee, and that would be an operational point-to-point internet service provider. 60,000, I mean 50,000. And then when it was installed, it was not working, so he needed to add another 10,000. So the total expenses was 60,000. So that was very expensive. I think he was ripped off. He was overpriced. It was overpriced, but in those cases where he really needed the internet, I think sometimes the P2P suppliers would monopolize the situation, especially since in the pandemic, I think they took advantage of it, since most are work from home and most are online schooling. So I think they monopolized it. They found a good business advantage, so they took it, and that's business. So yeah, just be careful with your internet supplier or your point-to-point internet supplier. They might rip you off, or they might overprice it, so just be very careful. Now, the third disadvantage is the expensive monthly fee. So I talked about the expensive installation fee. Now I'll talk about the expensive monthly fee. Now, the third disadvantage is the expensive monthly payment. In our case, the 20 Mbps speed cost us 2,500 pesos. per month. And if you compare it to the DSL fiber of PLDT, or the DSL or the fiber of the PLDT, the 2,500 pesos already would give me around 100 Mbps. I'll post it somewhere here. So that's almost 5 times the internet speed. But then again, the purpose of P2P is to have internet in places where PLDT or other ISP couldn't reach. So that's it. If there is no other internet service provider, you have no other choice but either go data go go with point to point. Now, maintenance. The fourth disadvantage now is maintenance. So the main antenna or disk is usually or constantly put under maintenance. I don't know why, it just is. Maybe because they need to adjust the height of it or fix something, but it is needed and you must be prepared for it. Sometimes it is very bothersome since it usually takes 30 minutes to 2 hours depending on the gravity of the maintenance. So expect that there would be no internet in those maintenance times. So if there are any maintenance, usually the point-to-point supplier would tell you or would tell your group of users that there would be a maintenance. So they would tell you to be prepared for your internet to be gone for approximately 30 minutes. Sometimes they would extend and it would take up to 2 hours. Sometimes that 2 hours would be very quite bothersome since 2 hours is very long time, since 30 minutes is very considerable, but 2 hours is quite long, especially when you need some work to be done or you have some online class. Now the fifth one disadvantage is the power outage. So during power outage or blackouts, expect that there would be no internet also, not unless your P2P supplier has their own power generator or power supply that would provide electricity to the main antenna. So that's a good thing if your P2P supplier does indeed have a own backup power supply. Next disadvantage is it is not weather friendly. So during rainstorms or lightning storms, P2P main antenna sometimes need to be brought down. I do agree with what Sir Q said, to prevent it from getting damaged by the rain or by the storm or by the wind. Sometimes there are some things that are falling down, like the tree branches or tree twigs. Sometimes it would hit the antenna or the main dish and it would damage it. So also expect that there would be no internet if there is a storm or there is a strong rain. Now number 7 is user traffic. So if your P2P supplier has plenty of users or plenty of customers, if there's just too much users connected to your P2P supplier, if there's just too much user connected to the antenna or to the main dish, there would what you call a user traffic. So what happens during user traffic is that data and the signal being transferred would be too crowded, since there are already multiple users connected to the main antenna, and that would cause slower speed and less stable internet. Now number 8, if you have decided to stop with the P2P subscription, and then if you want the antenna to be removed, uh, that would be a great disadvantage since it has a difficult uninstallation, or it is difficult to remove. So sometimes you could ask the supplier to remove the antenna, but I think there is a extra fee for the removal since it is quite dangerous. So they would have their own people or their own laborers to remove the antenna. So that would be another expense. Or sometimes if you don't want to remove it, uh, sometimes some people just leave it there, but that would take up space and it does not look good or it does not look great. So if any internet service providers could reach your area or your location, it is better to have your P2P removed, or it really depends on you. Now, the number 9 disadvantage is that the antenna takes up too much space. So installing the antenna would take up too much space, especially if you live in a house with a small area. Sometimes they would install it in your roof if there is no other choice. I've seen some houses here, their antennas are installed in the roof. So it really depends on you. Sometimes it does not look good in your own house. It does destroy the design of your house, the aesthetic of it. So it really depends on you. Our antenna here is also installed in our roof. Now, number 10. This is quite subjective, so this depends on your supplier. But some suppliers have little knowledge about P2P. So disadvantage is very subjective, especially since it depends on your P2P supplier. So some supplier really has no knowledge or has little knowledge on how P2P works or how internet works. So sometimes I would ask them why our internet is so slow. She would just tell me to reset the modem, thinking that it would work, but of course it doesn't work. It's still unstable and it is still slow. Because obviously rebooting the modem will just help the modem cool down. It doesn't really affect that much in the internet speed. So if your internet speed is really slow, turning on and turning off the modem will not affect the internet speed, not unless your modem is damaged, or if your modem is a cheap modem or an entry-level modem and you have too many gadgets connected to it. Now, the last disadvantage of P2P: download speed is not equal to upload speed. So if you really wanted to know, or if you really wanted, or if you really needed that upload speed, I'm gonna tell you right now, using P2P connection, download speed is not equal to upload speed. So if your download speed is around 20 Mbps, your upload speed is not 20 Mbps. Sometimes, in our case, I have 20 Mbps here right now. The upload speed sometimes would hit 7 Mbps, sometimes it would go down to 5 Mbps. It is not equal to your download speed. Now, I think I've tackled all the disadvantages that I could think of. Some disadvantages are not really some disadvantages tackled by Sir Q are not really disadvantages. So that's it. Now I would like to talk about the pros or the advantages. First off is the adjustable speed. So the internet speed is adjustable. You just need to contact the supplier if you want a speed that is faster. The supplier is just one text away or just one chat away. But that would also mean a more expensive monthly fee. But you could also reduce your speed if you think you don't need that extra Mbps to reduce Of course, to reduce your monthly payment. Now, number two, the advantages. Provides internet to rural areas and areas with no data or internet. So, as what Sir Q said, he already talked about this. So, of course, the number one reason for P2P connection is due to the fact that some rural areas here in the Philippines are not reachable by internet service providers. So P2P is very useful, especially if you have online class or if you are working from home. The only problem is if only you could pay for it, because the installation fee is quite expensive, and of course the monthly fee is also expensive. But if you really needed internet, the P2P is always a good option. Now, the third advantage is compensating price depending on the situation. So I think Sir Q already talked about this, where you could adjust the monthly payment if you have a bad connection. So what's good with P2P is that you could ask for discount or compensation when the internet is really bad. So for example, you could tell your supplier that your internet has been down for a few days, and you could ask for a discounted monthly price to compensate for the days your internet was down. So if it was down for 2 days, you could tell the supplier and tell him, maybe you could adjust my monthly payment since my internet was down for 2 days. Maybe you could reduce the monthly payment by for compensate it for 2 days. You could talk to your supplier about it, and they would definitely agree, and they would adjust the monthly payment. Now, number four, disadvantages. Advantages. Number four advantages is the fast response from the supplier. So the supplier are quite fast to respond, usually by texting them, chatting them. They would respond to your questions. Usually by texting them and chatting them, they would respond to your questions and even try to fix your problem as soon as possible. So if you have a problem, just contact them and they would come to your house and try to fix whatever problem it is. Usually it is free. Well, in our case, it is free. In the case of Sir Q, it is not free. He is being paid. He is being asked for payment just to fix a problem with his antenna. So I think he didn't have to pay for it, because I think that the P2P supplier it is their own responsibility to fix any damages on the antenna. So that's all for the advantages and the disadvantages. But I think there are some questions where I will talk about it later on, or I will talk about it on a different video. So stay tuned. This video I just talked about the advantages and the disadvantages. If you want to learn more, or if you have a lot of questions, I know you have a lot of questions, especially to those people who have online classes, to those who are working from home. Stay tuned to my next video. I will upload it as soon as possible. So keep updated, subscribe, and leave a like, and leave more comments so I could answer or respond to it as soon as possible. So thank you for watching.